fellowships of men, women, and youth coming together for the purpose of healing and self-development, interactive processes, networking, and education, subsequently providing leadership and excellence that ignites and transforms the community. What I'd like you to do is, those folks on this side, I'd like you to recite something when I ask you to the person across from you. But the first thing I'd like you to do is establish eye contact. On this side, if you could recite after me, while maintaining that eye contact. I see you.
I see you.
I accept you.
I accept you.
And I care.
And I care.
Who the heck is responsible for what's going on with our children? If we can't go to the police, if something's going on, if we can't go to the courts, if we can't go to the politicians, who can we go to? And for me, that resonated from the standpoint of that finger coming all the way back full circle to me. And that if we can't rely on us, who can we rely on?
My grandfather lived in an area outside Oklahoma City where the signs read, Negro estates for the lowest rates, set up by rich folks. Well, that allowed us to have our own businesses, our own stores, our own shops. In fact, he owned a small restaurant. And pretty much had that because everybody knew everybody. And this is how your kid becomes my kid. Because you and I know each other. You and I have a relationship. When you live on the other side of town, I live on the west end and everybody else lives all around. We don't really have a relationship. Even in church, we don't have a relationship. Your kids aren't my kids. I don't know how they're being raised. I don't know what you're doing with them. You don't know what I'm doing with my kids, or even if I have kids at all. We come here and we go our separate ways and we deal with separate fights. When we are engaged and close in, or at the very least, clear that we're all on the same page about something, that's when we have a relationship, and that's when your kid becomes my kid.
So here's what I'd like you to do. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, and I just want to let you in on a secret about this process. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time here. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about this for a few minutes, and we're going to leave. We're going to leave real quick. All right, so what I'd like you to do is with your partner, come up with 5 things that are not working for us. 5 things that are not working for us. You got 5 minutes, go. So if you can put your tabs right up on that little sheet right there. We've got value system, we've got lack of history, education, and us not working for us. So if you vote once, you get 1 vote. Education. Who says education is the number 1? Education. Us. Who says that's the number 1? 1? Y'all get. So it looks like us. We the culprit, huh? In terms of this consciousness of this group. In order to get what we want, it's important that we be what? That we be what? That we be what? So what I want you to do again, go back to your partner and come up with a list of 5. What's the list? What's 5 things that we need to be? How we need to show up? How we need to pattern our beliefs? We need to be honest.
Be honest. 100% responsibility.
100% responsible. Be the change. Connected to the Creator. Good stuff. Can we place these up here? Of course, we're not devaluing the other stuff. That the number 1 issue is that we cause more harm to ourselves than any of the other things that we talked about, right? So that's number 1. That's the issue. That's the purpose. That's what we want to shift, right? We also came up with principles. How we need to show up, how we need to be in order to effectively address that issue and to make that shift happen. So now we're talking about process. This is when we get into the nuts and bolts of the details about how do we go about doing that. So the question I'm asking is just sort of like if we were to hypothetically say that we have a plan on how we're going to address that issue, does it mean that we go get families and we bring them together to have conversations? Does it mean, you see what I'm saying? What does that look like? What's the process? How do we go about doing that?
We go about doing that by taking complete look at ourselves from the inside out and start to ask different questions. Who am I really? What am I capable of? What's possible if I adjust my belief system? What's possible if I stop looking and judging and complaining about the world and looking at what's capable, what's potential, what's the omnipresent thing inside me that transcends.
So how do you do that? What's the what, where, when, how? How do we do that?
You start with that attunement you did by noticing your breath and getting in touch with your internal quiet, your peace inside. And you begin to ask yourself questions that you listen for different answers, not the world's answers, not the same old answers from how we grew up or the way our ancestors did. What are the answers today? Because the world is very different than it was 200 years ago. The world is very different than it was 50 years ago. And for the people that are coming back into our communities, we have to have a different conversation about who they need to become in order to be successful in this world. Because the old way is not the way. There's too much transformation and change in the world today to look and to ask the same questions. We have to ask different questions about who we're becoming in the world.
And who do we approach first? We approach the young, we approach the old, we approach everybody else at the same time?
I approach myself.
So you start with yourself.
Start with me.
One thing that came up for me is education. And for me, when I think about education, is that you have to, whoever you're working with, that's where you start. So as an example, if I'm working with kids in juvenile hall, that's what I'm starting with. Helping them to understand who they are, so doing a little, meditation, education with them around history, culture, spirituality, and then looking for a warm handoff to people in the community. So we have a transition center also, so then helping them, and then if they come back, just continuing that work.
And based on your strategy, is that because that's missing today? Or are we talking about the same as what's existing already?
I think, again, it's like before we get to that whole big piece of unity, it's like Booker T said, you have to cast down your bootstraps where you are. And I'm right there in that institution. That's my work.
So help those,
yeah. And then hopefully making warm handoffs from there.
That's right.